Daniel Wright stood in the massive chamber of the Galactic Council and felt the weight of 1,000 eyes watching him. The chamber was huge, built to hold representatives from 300 different species. Most of those representatives looked down at him from their elevated seats with expressions he had learned to read over the past 2 years. Some showed curiosity, others showed contempt, none showed friendship. He had been Earth's ambassador to the Council for 24 months. In that time, he thought humanity had been doing well. They paid their standard membership fees. They attended all required meetings. They followed every rule in the complicated Council Charter. Earth even offered to share some of their medical technology with species that needed it. But now he stood alone on the speaking floor, and the mood in the chamber felt wrong. Council Overseer rose from his seat at the center of the highest tier. The reptilian leader was over 3 meters tall when he stood fully upright. His scales gleamed dark green under the chamber lights, and his eyes were cold yellow slits. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the vast space. Ambassador Wright, humanity has been summoned here to address a serious matter of council law. Daniel kept his face calm. We are ready to address any concerns, Overseer. Gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. Numbers and documents filled the air in dozens of alien languages. Daniel's translator implant worked quickly to convert them to English. When humanity joined the Galactic Council 2 years ago, you agreed to abide by all council regulations. This includes regulations that existed before your membership began. That is correct, Daniel said carefully. Something in the Overseer's tone made his stomach tighten. Then you will understand that humanity owes the Council a debt. Tap to control, and a new number appeared in the display. It was so large that Daniel thought his translator must be broken. You owe 80% of Earth's total resources, backdated to the moment of first contact with Council species. This amounts to what you see before you. The chamber erupted in noise. Daniel heard various alien species chittering, hissing, and making sounds his translator could not interpret. But he noticed something strange. The representatives from the 5 founding council races, the oldest and most powerful species, looked bored. They had seen this before. Meanwhile, the representatives from younger species, those who had joined the council more recently, looked nervous or afraid. That is impossible, Daniel said once the noise died down. Earth could not pay such an amount. Our entire planet does not have those kinds of resources available. Chancellor and creature with too many legs and compound eyes clicked forward to the speaking rail. The calculation is correct, Ambassador. All species pay membership dues based on their total resource capacity. The rate is set in Council Charter Section 47, Subsection 12, Paragraph 9. Daniel pulled up the charter on his personal display. He had read it cover to cover 3 times when humanity first joined. He had never seen that section. But there it was, written in dense legal language that made his head hurt. The section had been added to the charter 800 years ago, long before humans even knew aliens existed. This cannot be the standard rate, Daniel protested. 80% would cripple any civilization. It is the standard rate for young species, said. His tone made it clear he would not debate the point. Older, more established species pay lower rates once they have proven their stability and value to the Council. Young species represent unknown risks. The higher dues compensate the Council for taking that risk. Daniel looked around the chamber again. Now he understood the expressions he saw. The 5 founding species had never paid these rates. They created them. The younger species had all paid. He could see it in their faces. I must consult with my government, Daniel said. You have 7 days, replied. Return here with confirmation of payment arrangements or humanity will face sanctions. 7 days is not enough time for such a decision. We request 30 days. 7 days. His voice cut through the chamber like a blade. The Council has been generous in overlooking this debt for 2 years. We will not wait longer. 7 days, or we will consider humanity in violation of Council law. Violations carry penalties including trade embargoes, revocation of travel rights, and military sanctions if necessary. The words military sanctions hit Daniel like a punch. He knew what that meant. Council fleets would blockade Earth. They might even attack human colonies on Mars and Europa. I understand, Daniel said, though his mouth felt dry. 7 days. The Council dismissed him. As Daniel walked out of the chamber, a small avian creature approached him in the corridor. She moved quickly, her feathers ruffled with what looked like anxiety. He recognized her as Aura, a junior representative from a species called the Velar. They had joined the council 15 years ago. "Ambassador Wright," she said quietly, looking around to make sure no one else heard. "Please be careful. My people faced the same demand when we joined. We paid. It destroyed our economy. We are still recovering." "How much did you pay?" Daniel asked. 75% of our resources over 10 years. We had no choice. The council fleets came to our borders. We could not fight them." She looked at him with large, dark eyes. "I am sorry. I wanted to warn you." Daniel reached the secure communication room at the human embassy station. He immediately contacted Earth. Captain Lisa Morgan appeared on the screen first. She commanded Earth's defense fleet, such as it was. Humanity had 12 warships built in the past 5 years. The Council had thousands. "Daniel," Lisa said, "we picked up movement. Council fleets are repositioning near our colonies. They started moving 2 hours ago before the meeting even ended." "They planned this," Daniel said. "This whole thing was planned." President Helen Carter joined the call next. "We received your emergency signal. What happened?" Daniel explained everything. The impossible demand, the 7-day deadline, the threats. When he finished, silence filled the communication channel. Finally, President Carter spoke. "Call an emergency session of all Earth governments. Every leader, every expert, everyone who can help. We have 7 days to decide the future of our species." "What will we do?" Daniel asked. "I do not know yet," Carter admitted. "But humanity did not come this far, did not reach the stars just to become slaves to bureaucrats and bullies. We will find another way. We always do." Daniel signed off and sat alone in the dark room. Outside the window, he could see the lights of the council station. Somewhere out there, 300 species lived under council rule. How many of them had been extorted just like this? How many had been forced to choose between slavery and destruction? He thought about Earth, green forests and blue oceans, cities full of people who dreamed of exploring the galaxy, children who grew up believing the stars held friends, not masters. 7 days to save all of that. The emergency session began 6 hours after Daniel's return to Earth. Every major leader from every nation gathered in Geneva, either in person or through secure video links. President Helen Carter stood at the center of the assembly hall, her face showing the strain of a night without sleep. "We have 6 days and 18 hours, she said without preamble. "The Galactic Council demands 80% of everything we have. Our resources, our technology, our future. If we refuse, they threaten military action. If we comply, we condemn humanity to centuries of poverty and dependence." The room erupted into heated discussion. Some leaders argued for negotiation. Others demanded immediate military preparation. A few suggested humanity should simply leave the council altogether. Admiral Gregory Stone stood from his seat. The old military commander had led Earth's defense forces since before first contact. "Leaving the council is not an option. They control all faster-than-light travel routes. They regulate all interstellar trade. Any human ship that leaves Sol system would be seized. We would be trapped on Earth, cut off from the galaxy." "Then we fight," said the defense minister from the Asian coalition. 12 ships against thousands may seem hopeless, but humans have won against worse odds." "Not like this," Admiral Stone said grimly. "I reviewed the tactical data. Council ships outnumber us 300 to 1. Even if every human vessel performed perfectly, we would lose within hours, and they would not stop with our fleet. They would bombard our colonies. They might even attack Earth itself." The room fell silent. The weight of impossible choices pressed down on everyone present. Dr. Pierce raised his hand. The economist was young for such an important meeting, only 35, but his work in analyzing alien markets had earned him respect. "May I present some information?" President Carter nodded. "Go ahead." Stood and activated a holographic display. Charts and graphs filled the air above the assembly. "For the past 2 years, I have been studying council economics. Not just the official reports they share, but everything I could find. Trade patterns, resource flows, financial transfers between species." "Why?" asked the European Union representative. "Because something felt wrong from the start," said. "The Council claims to be a peaceful alliance of equals, but I noticed that wealth only flows one direction, from young species to old ones, from weak to strong." He changed the display. A network of financial connections appeared, showing money moving through the Council like blood through veins. The Council extorts every new species. They have done it for over 1,000 years. The 5 founding races created this system to maintain their power and wealth. Young species pay massive fees that cripple their economies for generations. By the time those species recover enough to challenge the system, they have become invested in it. They start to benefit from extorting newer members. How many species have been extorted? President Carter asked. At least 63 that I can confirm, replied. Probably more. The records are hidden in deep financial archives, but the pattern is clear. Every species that joined the Council in the past 500 years faced similar demands. Most paid. A few tried to refuse. What happened to them? His expression darkened. 3 species went to war with the Council. All 3 lost. They were blockaded until they surrendered. 2 other species simply abandoned their colonies and from galactic society entirely. They are still isolated today, afraid to even communicate with other worlds. The room filled with grim murmurs. Admiral Stone leaned back in his chair. So we have no good options. We cannot pay, we cannot fight, we cannot run. Actually, said, and now a small smile appeared on his tired face, I think we have one option they never considered. President Carter stepped closer. Explain. Pulled up a new set of data. The Council's extortion system has a weakness. It relies on secrecy and shame. Young species who get extorted do not talk about it. They feel embarrassed. They think they are alone, that maybe they deserved this treatment somehow. The Council encourages this thinking. They tell each species that the fees are normal, that everyone pays them. But that is a lie, Daniel Wright said from his seat. He had been listening quietly since the meeting began. Exactly, agreed. Most species do not realize how many others suffered the same way. They do not know that the fees are not normal membership costs, but organized theft. If they knew the truth, if all 63 extorted species learned what really happened to them, the Council's power would break. You want to expose them, President Carter said slowly. More than expose them. I want humanity to refuse payment and then help every other extorted species refuse too. We turn this from humanity against the Council into the entire young galactic community against 5 old bullies. That is incredibly risky, Admiral Stone said. The Council could still attack us. They could, admitted. But would they? If we make this public, if we broadcast the truth to every species in the galaxy, the Council founders would have to explain themselves. They would have to admit that their wealth came from theft. Their own populations might revolt. Other species might rebel. The political cost could be higher than they want to pay. President Carter looked around the room. This is not a decision I can make alone, but I like this plan better than our other options. How fast can you prepare a complete report? Every detail, every piece of evidence. I have most of it ready now. Give me 12 hours and I can compile everything into a format that any species can understand. Do it, Admiral Stone. Begin defensive preparations. Move our fleet to protect the colonies, but do not take aggressive positions. Captain Morgan, you will coordinate with the Admiral. I want every ship ready, but I do not want to give the Council an excuse to claim we started a fight. Lisa Morgan, who had been attending the meeting remotely from her ship, nodded. Understood, Madam President. President Carter turned to Daniel Wright. Ambassador, you need to return to the Council station. Request another meeting. Tell them humanity needs to address the full Galactic Assembly, not just the Council leadership. They will refuse, Daniel said. Probably, but there is an old law, something I found in the charter last night while you were traveling. Any Council member can demand a public assembly session if they invoke the right of open testimony. It has not been used in 300 years, but it is still valid. Daniel felt a spark of hope. If I invoke that right, they have to let me speak, and the speech would be broadcast to every member species. Exactly. You go there, you demand that right, and then you tell the entire galaxy what the Council really is. You show them evidence. You invite every extorted species to stand with us. And if the Council still threatens us, President Carter's expression hardened. Then we show them that humanity did not crawl out of caves, survive ice ages, and reach the stars just to bow to corrupt politicians. We will make them understand that extorting Earth was the worst mistake they ever made. The vote was unanimous. Every nation on Earth agreed to the plan. Humanity would not pay. Humanity would not submit. Instead, humanity would shine a light on 800 years of systematic theft and give every victim a chance to say no. Daniel prepared to return to the council station. As he packed his materials, Lisa Morgan contacted him privately. "Daniel, be careful. The moment you invoke that old law, the council leadership will know something is wrong. They might try to stop you before you can speak." "I know," Daniel said, "but someone has to do this. Someone has to stand up." "Why does it have to be you?" Daniel smiled. "Because I am the ambassador. This is literally my job. Besides, I keep thinking about what Aura said. Her species paid and it destroyed them. How many other species are still suffering? How many are still paying for a crime that was committed against them? If humanity can stop this, we have to try." He boarded the shuttle back to the council station. In his pocket, he carried a simple data chip. It contained every piece of evidence had compiled. Financial records, trade patterns, hidden documents, everything needed to prove the council's guilt. The flight took 8 hours. During that time, Admiral Stone moved Earth's fleet into position. 12 ships against thousands. It should have felt hopeless. But Daniel remembered something his grandmother told him when he was young. She lived through the water wars of the 2050s, back when nations fought over resources, and everyone thought humanity would destroy itself. "The thing about bullies," she had said, "is that they only stay strong as long as their victims stay quiet. The moment people start talking to each other, start realizing they all suffered the same abuse, the bully's power disappears." Daniel watched the council station grow larger in the viewport. Somewhere inside that massive structure, and the other council founders probably thought they had won. They had crushed young species for centuries. Why would humanity be different? They were about to find out. The shuttle docked. Daniel walked through the corridors toward the council chambers. Other species passed him, barely glancing his way. They had no idea that everything was about to change. He reached the communication center and filed his request, right of open testimony. The Galactic Assembly Chamber looked different when it was full. Daniel had only seen it with the usual council representatives present, perhaps 200 beings at most. Now every seat was occupied. Every member species had sent delegates to witness this rare public session. The chamber buzzed with hundreds of different languages, all blending into a chorus of confusion and curiosity. Daniel stood on the central speaking floor. Above him, arranged in ascending circles like an ancient amphitheater, sat representatives from 300 worlds. Cameras floated through the air, capturing everything. The session was being broadcast live to every planet in council space. Billions of beings across the galaxy were watching. Council Overseer sat in his elevated throne, his yellow eyes fixed on Daniel with barely concealed anger. Chancellor flanked him on one side, mandibles clicking in agitation. The other founding species leaders occupied their traditional positions of honor. All of them looked furious that someone had dared invoke the ancient law. "Ambassador Wright," said, his voice cold, "you have invoked the right of open testimony. This is a rare and serious action. I hope you understand the gravity of wasting the Assembly's time." "I understand completely, Overseer," Daniel replied. His voice was amplified throughout the chamber, carried to every listening world. "What I have to say concerns every species in this room, every world in the Council. The information I will share today will change our understanding of how this government actually operates." Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. Daniel saw Aura in her section, leaning forward intently. Other representatives from younger species showed similar interest. The founding species delegates looked bored or annoyed. "You summoned humanity 7 days ago," Daniel continued. "You presented us with a bill for 80% of Earth's resources. You called this a membership fee. You said all young species pay similar amounts." "This is not news," interrupted. "We gave you time to arrange payment. Instead, you call this session. Do you have the payment or not?" "No," Daniel said clearly. "Earth will not pay, not one credit, not 1 gram of resources. We refuse." The chamber exploded with noise. Delegates shouted in their various languages. Some sounded shocked. Others sounded approving. The founding species representatives began calling for order, demanding Daniel be removed from the floor. Daniel raised his voice. "But I am not finished. I invoked open testimony, which means you must hear my complete statement before taking any action. That is the law." Looked ready to argue, but one of his advisors whispered in his ear. The overseer's expression twisted with frustration. "Continue," he growled. "Thank you." Daniel pulled out his data chip and inserted it into the chamber's main system. Holographic displays appeared throughout the vast space, visible from every angle. I want to tell you all a story about how the Galactic Council really works. The displays showed financial records, trade routes, resource transfers spanning centuries. Daniel had spent the entire journey memorizing every detail, and now he laid it all out for the galaxy to see. The Council was founded 1,200 years ago by 5 species. Those species created a government based on principles of peace and cooperation, or so they claimed. In reality, they created something else, a system designed to extract wealth from every new species that joined. "This is slander," Chancellor hissed. "This is documentation," Daniel countered. He gestured to the displays. "Every financial transfer is recorded here, every extorted payment, every species that was forced to surrender their resources or face military action. I have tracked 63 different civilizations that faced the same demand humanity received. 63 species told to pay between 70 and 85% of everything they owned." The chamber grew quieter as delegates began studying the displays. Daniel saw recognition dawning on many faces. Representatives from younger species started pulling up their own historical records, comparing them to what Daniel showed. "The Velar Collective joined 15 years ago," Daniel said, and he saw Aura stiffen in her seat. "They were charged 75% of their resources over 10 years. Their economy collapsed. Their people suffered food shortages for a decade. They are still recovering." Aura stood slowly. Her feathers were ruffled, her large eyes bright with emotion. "This is true," she said, her voice shaking. "We paid because we thought we had no choice. The Council said this was normal. They said every species contributed equally." "But you did not contribute equally," Daniel said. "According to these records, the 5 founding species pay less than 1% of their economic output to Council operations. Meanwhile, species like yours pay crushing amounts that cripple your development for generations." More delegates were standing now. A reptilian representative from a species called the spoke up. "We paid 82% 30 years ago. We thought it was our burden alone." "The paid 78% 40 years ago," another delegate added, his multi-armed form trembling. "We paid 80%, said a crystalline being that shimmered under the lights. 55 years passed. Our world nearly died from resource depletion." Daniel watched as realization spread through the chamber like a wave. Species after species began confirming his data. They had all been told the same lies. They had all suffered the same theft. And they had all been kept from learning about each other. "This is propaganda," roared, standing from his throne. "Humanity is trying to avoid legitimate debts by spreading conspiracy theories." "Then explain the records," Daniel challenged. He pulled up a specific document, expanding it so everyone could see clearly. "This is Council Financial Directive 47-12-9, the law you used to demand Earth's resources. It was added to the Charter 803 years ago. Before that directive, new species paid standard membership fees of less than 5%. After it, young species began paying 70% or more." He showed another document. "This is the voting record from when the directive was created. Only the 5 founding species voted. No other species even knew the vote was happening. You created this law in secret, then used it to rob every civilization that came after you." "You cannot prove intent," Chancellor said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I can prove result," Daniel replied. "Here are resource flow charts covering the past 8 centuries. Wealth flows consistently from young species to old ones. The 5 founding civilizations have grown enormously rich while everyone else struggles. You built an empire not through conquest, but through systematic financial exploitation." He paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of beings from hundreds of worlds. "You made us believe this was normal. You isolated us from each other so we would not compare experiences. You threatened military action against anyone who refused. You created a system where victims blamed themselves instead of understanding they were being robbed." The chamber was nearly silent now, except for the hum of recording devices and the whisper of translated conversations. Daniel could see fear on the faces of the founding species representatives. They had kept this secret for so long, and now it was exposed to the entire galaxy. "Earth received the same demand all of you received," Daniel said. "But we did something different. We investigated, we gathered evidence, and now we are making a choice. We refuse to pay. We refuse to participate in this corrupt system, and we invite every species that was extorted to join us in refusal. You would tear apart the Council, said. You would bring chaos to galactic civilization. No, Daniel corrected. We would end a criminal enterprise disguised as a government. We would create an opportunity for real cooperation between equals. We would give every species the chance to keep what they earn and trade fairly with their neighbors. Aura stood again, and this time her voice was steady and strong. The Velar Collective stands with humanity. We will pay no more extortion fees. We demand the Council return what was stolen from us. The agree, said the reptilian delegate. The stand with Earth, declared the multi-armed being. One by one, representatives from younger species rose. Some spoke formally. Others simply stood in silent solidarity. Within minutes, more than 60 species had declared their support for humanity's position. The founding species representatives huddled together, speaking in urgent whispers. His face showed barely controlled rage. Finally, he stood and pointed at Daniel. You have made a grave mistake, human. The Council maintains order in this galaxy. Without our authority, there would be chaos and war. You think you can simply walk away from your obligations? You think you can encourage rebellion without consequences? I think, Daniel said calmly, that humanity and our new allies have the right to govern ourselves without paying tribute to bullies. I think the truth is more powerful than your threats. And I think every species in this chamber now understands what kind of organization the Council really is. Raised his hand. This session is concluded. Humanity and any species that supports them are hereby declared in violation of Council law. Military sanctions are authorized. Fleet Command will receive orders within the hour. Alarms began sounding throughout the station. The threat was real. The Council founders would not surrender their power without a fight. But as Daniel left the chamber, he saw something that gave him hope. Dozens of delegates from young species approached him, expressing support and asking how they could help. They were not alone anymore. None of them were. The galaxy had heard the truth. Now it would have to decide what to do with it. Captain Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Ship Guardian, watching the tactical display with calm focus. Around her, the crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this moment, though none of them truly believed it would come. Status report, Lisa said. Lieutenant Emma Brooks checked her sensors. Council fleet approaching from 3 vectors. Count is 247 ships. They will reach firing range in 40 minutes. What about our allies? Velar ships are in position near their colony on Velar Prime. Vessels defending their mining stations. Fleet just arrived at the coordinates. Total allied ships number 73. 73 against 247. The numbers were terrible, but better than 12 against thousands. In the 2 days since Daniel's speech to the Galactic Assembly, dozens of species had pledged support. Some could only offer political backing. Others, like the Velar, and had small defense fleets they were willing to commit. Admiral Gregory Stone's face appeared on the communication screen. He was coordinating the overall defense from Earth Command. Lisa, the Council is sending their 2nd fleet against Earth. That is their 2nd largest battle group. They want to make an example of us. They chose the wrong species, Lisa replied. Maybe, but they have better ships and more experience. Our people have been in space for 30 years. Most Council species have been out here for thousands of years. Lisa studied the tactical display more carefully. The Council fleet moved in traditional formation, organized and precise. They had no reason to expect serious resistance. Young species always lost when they fought the Council. It was practically a law of nature at this point. But humanity had learned something during their time in space. The Council species were old and established and powerful. They were also comfortable. They relied on reputation and numbers. They had not fought a real war in over 300 years. Earth had been fighting wars constantly for its entire history. Send the signal to all ships, Lisa ordered. Execute defensive patterns, Sierra. Make them think we are scared. The human fleet began repositioning, pulling back toward Earth's orbit. It looked like a retreat. The Council fleet accelerated, sensing victory. On the planet's surface, President Helen Carter watched the same tactical display from the command center in Geneva. Dr. Pierce stood beside her, along with representatives from 23 different species who had sent observers to Earth. They are coming fast, one of the observers said nervously. It was a Velar diplomat named Aura's cousin. "Your fleet looks like it is running." "They are supposed to look that way," replied. He pulled up additional data on a side screen. "While the galaxy was watching Daniel's speech, we were doing something else. We were sharing technology." "What technology?" asked. "Defensive systems mostly. Earth developed some innovations the Council does not know about. We have been installing them on Allied ships for the past 48 hours. President Carter kept her eyes on the tactical display. "Our goal is not to destroy the Council fleet. We want to disable them and show the galaxy that the Founders are not as strong as everyone believes." Commander Jake's voice came through from his position near Velar Prime. He commanded a mixed squadron of human, Velar, and ships. "Council ships entering weapons range. They are targeting the Velar colony first." "All ships stand by," Lisa ordered. Her hand hovered over the firing controls. "Remember the plan, precision, not destruction." The Council fleet opened fire. Beams of energy lanced across space toward the Velar colony's defense platforms. But the beams struck new shield systems, technology humans had developed and shared. The shields held. "Return fire," Lisa commanded. "Targeting Solution Alpha, disable their engines only." The human ships fired. Their weapons were different from standard Council technology. Smaller, faster, more accurate. Instead of trying to punch through heavy armor, they targeted specific systems. Engine clusters, power conduits, shield generators. The lead Council ship lost propulsion and began tumbling, then another, and another. On the Council Command Ship Dominion, Fleet Commander watched in growing confusion as his vessels started going dark. "What is happening? Why are our ships losing power?" "Unknown, Commander. The enemy weapons appear to be targeting critical systems with extreme precision." "Impossible. Young species do not have that kind of targeting capability." But the tactical display did not care what was impossible. More Council ships were going offline, their systems disabled by surgical strikes. None of them were destroyed. No crew members were dying, but the ships were helpless, drifting in space. "All vessels, evasive pattern," ordered. "Break formation and engage at will." The Council fleet scattered, abandoning their precise formation. This should have given them an advantage. Individual ships could maneuver better, find better firing angles. Instead, it exposed them to the second part of humanity's plan. Jake smiled as his mixed squadron activated their upgraded engines. "All Allied ships pursue pattern Delta. Show them how we hunt." The human ships moved faster than they should have been able to. Admiral Stone had prioritized engine development for years, knowing that humanity's ships needed every advantage they could get. Now those engines let them dance around the heavier Council vessels, staying close and firing constantly at critical systems. The Velaran ships followed the humans' lead, their crews trained in the past 2 days on Earth's tactical doctrines. It was not perfect coordination, but it did not need to be. The Council fleet had never faced this kind of asymmetric warfare. "Commander, we have lost 57 ships to system failures," tactical officer reported. "Another 33 have sustained heavy damage. We are not destroying any enemy vessels." Because they are not trying to destroy ours, realized, he understood now. The humans were making a point. They could win without killing. "Full retreat, all ships return to Council space." But Lisa had anticipated this too. "Do not let them run. Stay close. If they retreat, we follow and keep disabling ships." The Council fleet found itself in an impossible situation. They could not defeat the Allied forces. They could not escape. Their only option was surrender. "This is Fleet Commander to all human vessels," the message came through. "We request a ceasefire." Lisa exchanged glances with her bridge crew. Emma Brooks looked shocked. "They are surrendering." "They are requesting terms," Lisa corrected. She opened a channel. "Commander, this is Captain Lisa Morgan of Earth Defense. We accept your ceasefire request. Power down your weapons and prepare to receive boarding parties." "Boarding parties?" "We need to make sure you understand something. Your crews will not be harmed. We will repair your ships and send you home. But first, we are going to talk to them." Over the next several hours, human and Allied forces boarded the disabled Council ships. They did not come as conquerors. They came as teachers. Each boarding party included someone carrying the same evidence Daniel had presented to the Assembly. Financial records, historical documents, proof of centuries of systematic theft. Jake led one of these boarding parties onto a council cruiser. The crew gathered in their main bay, watching nervously as humans and Velar soldiers secured the area. Jake had his weapon, but he kept it lowered. "I am commander of the Earth Defense Forces," he said. "We did not come here to hurt you, we came to show you something." He activated a holographic display, the same presentation Daniel had given. "Most of you probably come from species that joined the Council in the past few centuries. You were told the Council represents peace and unity. You were told the fees your species paid were normal." A reptilian crew member from the species stepped forward. "I grew up believing the Council saved us from isolation, that they brought us into the galactic community." "They did bring you in," Jake agreed. "But they charged your species 82% of everything you owned for that privilege. Not because it was necessary, because they could, because that is how they maintain power." The crew members began arguing among themselves. Some refused to believe it. Others looked at the evidence and felt growing anger. Jake had seen this reaction on every ship they boarded. The truth was hard to accept. "Look at the data yourselves," Jake said. "Then decide. Do you want to serve leaders who built their power on theft, or do you want to help build something better?" By the time the boarding parties finished, half of the Council fleet crews were openly questioning their orders. 20 ships formally requested permission to join the Allied forces. The rest agreed to return home, but promised they would not fight against the rebellion again. Fleet Commander stood on his bridge, watching the human ships escort his damaged fleet toward the nearest repair station. He had served the Council for 40 years. He believed in what they represented, or he thought he did. "Commander," his communications officer said quietly, "I am from a colony world. We paid the fees 50 years ago. My grandparents starved during the economic collapse that followed. I never knew why until today." Looked at the young officer. He saw pain and anger and confusion in those eyes. "What do you want to do?" "I want to go home and tell my family the truth. I want them to know it was not our fault. We were not weak or stupid. We were robbed." "Then go," said. "When we reach the station, take a shuttle, go tell your family." The officer looked shocked. "You would let me leave?" "I think," said slowly, "that many of us will be leaving after today. The humans showed us something. I'm not sure I can unsee it." Back on Earth, President Carter received the reports from all fronts. Not just the battle near Earth, but engagements near Velar Prime, stations, mining colonies. Everywhere the pattern was the same. Allied forces disabled Council ships without destroying them. They boarded the vessels and shared information. They offered Council crews the choice to learn the truth. "It is working," said, almost unable to believe it. "The military conflict is turning into an information campaign." "Because that is what this always was," Carter replied. "The Council's power was built on lies and isolation. We are destroying that foundation by connecting people and showing them the truth." Daniel's voice came through from the Council station. "Madam President, we are receiving requests from 47 species asking how they can join the Alliance. The Council leadership is in chaos. Some want to negotiate, others want to escalate. Tell them we will negotiate once they agree to basic terms. Return stolen resources, end all extortion practices, reform the Council charter to prevent future abuse." "They will never agree to that." "Then we keep fighting, but not with weapons if we can help it. We fight with truth, with solidarity, with the simple act of refusing to submit." Lisa Morgan's ship Guardian moved into high orbit over Earth. Through the viewport, she could see the planet below, green and blue and beautiful. She thought about all the species across the galaxy who had paid crushing fees just to join the Council. All the worlds that suffered because a few powerful civilizations decided they deserved to rule. "Emma," she said to her tactical officer, "how many Council ships did we destroy today?" "None, Captain." "And how many of their crew members died?" 3 months after humanity's refusal, the Galactic Council building looked different. The grand entrance that once displayed the symbols of the 5 founding species now showed emblems from 67 different civilizations. The old hierarchy of seating had been dismantled. Representatives now sat in a circle, no species elevated above another. Daniel Wright walked through the corridors and still felt amazed by the transformation. Species that had barely spoken to each other before now gathered in small groups, talking excitedly about trade agreements and cultural exchanges. The fear that once hung in the air had been replaced by something else. Hope, maybe. or just the absence of oppression. He entered what was now called the Assembly Chamber of Free Worlds. President Helen Carter stood at the center, speaking with aura and representatives from a dozen other species. Carter had come to oversee the signing of the new charter, the document that would officially end the old council and create something better. "Daniel," Carter greeted him warmly. "Aura was just telling me about the economic recovery on Velar Prime. Their GDP has grown by 30% in 3 months." Aura's feathers were brighter than Daniel had ever seen them. The avian diplomat practically glowed with energy. "When the council returned 40% of what they stole from us, we could finally invest in our own infrastructure. Our people are eating well for the first time in 15 years. Children are going to school instead of working in factories. It is like waking up from a nightmare." 40% is not everything," Daniel said carefully. "We are still negotiating for full restitution." "It is more than we ever thought we would see," Aura replied, "and it is a start." More representatives entered the chamber. Some came from species that had supported humanity from the beginning. Others came from worlds that had initially sided with the council founders, but changed their minds when they learned the truth. A few even came from the founding species themselves, representatives who believed their civilizations needed to make amends. The only founding species leaders who refused to attend were Overseer and Chancellor. They had been removed from power by their own governments after the full extent of the extortion scheme became public. Now they waited for trial on charges of organized theft, fraud, and abuse of authority. President Carter called the assembly to order. The chamber quieted, and hundreds of beings turned their attention to the center. 3 months ago, humanity learned that joining the Galactic Council meant surrendering our future, Carter began. "We were told to pay 80% of everything we owned. We were told this was normal, that all young species contributed equally. We were told we had no choice." She paused, looking around the chamber at faces from dozens of worlds. "But we did have a choice. We chose to investigate. We chose to share what we learned. We chose to stand with other species who had suffered the same abuse. And together, we chose to say no." Applause erupted through the chamber. Not the polite, formal applause of diplomatic gatherings, but genuine appreciation and relief. These beings had lived under the council's corruption for decades or centuries. Now they were free. "Today we formalize that choice," Carter continued. "The new charter before you eliminates all extortion practices. It limits membership fees to 5% of economic output, equally applied to all species regardless of age. It requires transparent financial reporting. It creates an independent judiciary to investigate corruption. Most importantly, it establishes that no species, no matter how old or powerful, stands above the law." A crystalline being named rose from their seat. Their species, had paid crushing fees 40 years ago. "President Carter, many of us worried that humanity would simply replace the old council with a new empire. You had the military advantage. You had popular support. You could have demanded anything." "But we did not want an empire," Carter said simply. "We wanted justice. We wanted a galaxy where species could trade freely, share knowledge openly, and govern themselves without fear. That is not something you build by dominating others." "Still, Prest, humanity has shown remarkable military capability. Your defensive technology is superior to anything we have seen. Will you share this technology or keep it as leverage?" Daniel stepped forward to answer this question. "We are already sharing it. Over the past month, human engineers have been working with teams from 23 different species. We are teaching them how to build our shield systems, our targeting computers, our engine modifications. We believe a strong defense makes everyone safer." "And if species use this technology against each other?" asked a delegate from the... "Then we will do what any peaceful civilization should do," Daniel replied. "We will mediate. We will encourage diplomacy. We will, if necessary, intervene to protect innocent lives, but we will not try to rule you. The whole point of this revolution was to end ruling." Another delegate stood, this one from a founding species called the had been among the architects of the original extortion system. "My people have much to answer for. We built our wealth on the suffering of others. Many citizens still do not understand the magnitude of our crimes. What does this assembly expect from us?" President Carter gestured for the delegate to approach. They met in the center of the chamber, visible to all. "We expect what we would expect from anyone who has committed a crime. Acknowledge what you did. Return what you stole. Make changes to ensure it never happens again. Help the species you harmed to recover. And if we do all this, will we be forgiven? Forgiveness is not something I can offer on behalf of 60 species, Carter said. Each world will have to decide that for themselves, but I can tell you what humanity believes. We believe in second chances. We believe people can change. We believe a society that has done wrong can become better. The delegate bowed low, a gesture of deep respect in their culture. Then we will work to earn that chance. The assembly moved to the formal signing. One by one, representatives came forward to place their mark on the new charter. Some signed with flourishes, celebrating the moment. Others signed quietly, still processing the massive changes. All of them understood they were part of something historic. When the last signature was recorded, the chamber erupted in celebration. Music from 100 different cultures filled the air. Delegates who had barely known each other 3 months ago embraced like old friends. Daniel found himself standing next to Aura, watching the celebration. "Your grandmother would be proud," Aura said. "You told me once that she said bullies lose power when victims start talking to each other. She was right." "She usually was," Daniel agreed. He felt tired but satisfied. The past 3 months had been the hardest work of his life, negotiating with dozens of species, each with their own needs and concerns, mediating disputes between former council members and rebellious worlds, helping write a charter that satisfied everyone while compromising no one's essential interests. But it was worth it. The galaxy was better than it had been. Admiral Gregory Stone approached with Lisa Morgan at his side. The admiral looked more relaxed than Daniel had seen him in years. "Ambassador, the new Defense Coordination Committee wants to meet with you tomorrow. They are planning joint training exercises." "Joint exercises between former enemies," Lisa added. 6 months ago, I would have said that was impossible. Now we have council species and rebel species practicing together. "Because neither side is really the enemy anymore," Daniel said. "The enemy was the system. Now that the system is gone, we can actually work together." President Carter joined their group, and for a moment they all just stood in comfortable silence, watching the celebration around them. Finally, Carter spoke. "I keep thinking about what might have happened if we had just paid, if we had accepted the extortion and tried to survive it like everyone else." "We would still be paying," Daniel said. "Our children would still be paying, and the council would still be extorting every new species that joined." "Do you think we made the right choice?" "Look around," Daniel gestured to the celebrating delegates. "Every being in this room comes from a species that was oppressed or exploited or forced to suffer. Now they are free. They are building friendships with former enemies. They are planning a future based on cooperation instead of domination. Yes, Madam President, we made the right choice." Later that evening, Daniel stood alone on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. Earth was visible in the distance, a blue-green jewel against the darkness. Somewhere out there, billions of people were going about their lives, probably not thinking much about galactic politics or diplomatic revolutions. They did not need to think about it. That was the point. They could live their lives, pursue their dreams, raise their children, because humanity had refused to accept oppression as normal. "Mind if I join you?" Lieutenant Emma Brooks appeared beside him. The young officer had become something of a hero after the battle near Earth. Her precise targeting had disabled more council ships than any other gunner. "Please," Daniel said. They stood together for a moment, watching the stars. Finally, Emma spoke. "My little sister asked me something yesterday. She is 8 years old and she wanted to know why the council tried to hurt us." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that sometimes people with power forget they are supposed to use it to help others. They start thinking power exists to help themselves. But then someone has to remind them that is not how things should work." Daniel smiled. "That is a good answer." "She asked me something else too. She asked if we are going to become like the old council. If humanity will start thinking we are better than everyone else because we won." "And what did you tell her?" "I told her that was up to us, that every generation has to choose between being fair and being powerful. I told her I hope we always choose fair." "We will," Daniel said with certainty, "because we remember what it felt like to be the small species, the young civilization that everyone underestimated. We remember being threatened and extorted. As long as we remember that, we will not become what we fought against." Emma nodded. "Captain Morgan said something similar. She said the day we stop questioning ourselves, the day we start thinking we can't make mistakes, that is the day we become dangerous. Lisa is very wise. So are you, Ambassador. You started all of this. If you had not pushed for that open testimony, none of this would have happened. I did not start it, Daniel corrected gently. Dr. Pierce gathered the evidence. President Carter made the decision. Admiral Stone and Captain Morgan won the battles. Aura and the other junior delegates had the courage to stand with us. This was not one person. It was thousands of people across dozens of species, all choosing to do the right thing. But someone had to go first. Daniel thought about that. Maybe, but I think humanity would have gone first no matter who the ambassador was. It is who we are. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars and environmental collapse. We reached the stars not because we are stronger or smarter than other species, but because we refuse to accept that things cannot change. That is our real strength, not our technology or our military, our refusal to believe that injustice is inevitable. Emma smiled. That is a better speech than the one you gave to the assembly. The assembly got the speech they needed. You get the truth. They stood together a while longer, watching Earth turn slowly in the distance. Tomorrow, Daniel would return to work. There were still negotiations to complete, treaties to finalize, relationships to build. The new assembly of free worlds was only beginning its journey. But tonight, he allowed himself to simply enjoy the moment, to appreciate what they had accomplished, to feel hope for what the galaxy might become. Somewhere on Earth, children were going to sleep safe and free. On Velar Prime, families were eating meals without hunger. On stations, people were building futures without crushing debt. Across dozens of worlds, beings who had suffered under council oppression were beginning to heal. It was not perfect. There were still disputes to resolve, wounds to mend, systems to rebuild. But it was better, so much better than it had been. And that, Daniel thought, was enough. When faced with injustice, humanity had not submitted. They had not destroyed their enemies. They had simply shown the galaxy a different way. They turned the galaxy upside down by proving that strength meant protecting others, that power meant lifting people up, and that the greatest victory was not conquering your enemies, but helping them become allies. The stars shone bright through the observation window. They looked the same as they always had, but the galaxy they illuminated had changed forever. And it would never go back. None that we know of. Lisa nodded. Make sure that gets included in the report. We won not by being more violent than our enemies, but by being better than them. That is the message I want the galaxy to remember. Daniel contacted Earth immediately. It is done. The information is public. Multiple species have joined our position. President Carter appeared on his screen. The Council just ordered their fleets to begin military operations. They are coming. Then we show them that an alliance of free peoples is stronger than an empire of slaves, Daniel said. We are ready. Yes, Carter agreed, we are. Public session of the full Galactic Assembly. The request went through official channels. Within minutes, alarms began sounding throughout the Council station. The ancient law had been invoked. The Council had no choice but to comply. Daniel smiled. Round 2 was about to begin. Daniel pulled up every council law and regulation he could find. If there was a way out of this trap, he would find it. Humanity would find it. They had to.